What is up, everyone? My name is Ross, and today I have a quick Photoshop tip for all you creatives out there on how to take a very underexposed photo or a dark photo like this and turn it into a lovely masterpiece like this, which is the end result we're going to try to capture today when we're done with this. So I'm going to start from scratch to get into this. And before I do anything, I want to head over to where I got this picture. I found it on Flickr, and I contacted Mike McCune. He's an awesome guy, lovely photographer. I'm going to have his information below, and I hope you guys check him out. And I just want to say thank you, Mike, for allowing me to use your photo today, because it is a great candidate for what we're trying to do today. So we're going to go back over to Photoshop, and I'm going to hit Command-J, as always, to start this off, because I want to work non-destructively within Photoshop, and that creates a new layer for us. Once we have that new layer selected, or created rather, we're going to go up to Filter, and we're going to go to my favorite filter of all because it's so flexible. It's called Camera Raw filter. And Camera Raw, if you're used to working in Lightroom, it's pretty much the same tools that you have there within Photoshop. It's so powerful. So what we're going to do is we're just going to bump up the exposure, and we're going to watch that we don't blow anything out. Maybe some contrast, pull up the shadows. Another trick I found, and just humor me here, we're going to bump up the color temperature, and you can see by doing that it also affects the exposure because we're blowing out the highlights here. So we can pull that back to recover some of those highlights, and maybe just bring that down a little bit and bring exposure back just a little bit. And so we've brightened the image, but you might be saying, hey, it's still, now because we've effed with the color temperature, the color temperature's off. Just hear me out once again. The next thing I'm going to do is go to the detail panel within Camera Raw, and I'm going to bump up some noise reduction and color reduction. And what that's going to do is in these darker areas, I don't know if you can even see that. Let me take it back. You can kind of see, especially the color noise, it just cleans it up a lot. So I'm going to hit OK to this, and you're, like I said earlier, you're going to say, but this color temperature and the white balance is now off. And you are correct, but I'm not going to use the color temperature within this image. All I'm going to do is, once I've applied my Camera Raw adjustments to this duplicated layer, I'm going to go to the blending mode and add it to, or change it to luminosity. Now you're saying we've completely desaturated our image, and yes, we have, but we got the luminance levels where we want them. There is some saturation within here, and we're going to just bump those up by creating a new adjustment layer, and we're going to grab the vibrance adjustment layer. And with this, we're going to crank both of these up to bring back the lovely detail that was within the photo. Now we could stop here. This is a pretty good before and after, I would say. But because we already have this color adjusted layer, I'm going to duplicate that by hitting Command J, and by hitting Command Shift right bracket, move that to the top. So it's still set to luminosity, this layer. I want to change this now to color. And now we're back where we began. You're like, well, we just effed up the color again. I'm going to change the opacity to something around 40. Let's see what that looks like. And the before and after, it doesn't do much, but it does just bump it up just a tad bit. And the last thing I'm going to do to just complete this image, what I typically do with all my images, is add a little noise back to it. You might think that's counterproductive, but it does even out some of these areas in here. As you see, this is kind of chunky now. So what I'm going to do is hit Command Shift N to create a new layer. I'm going to set the mode to overlay, and I'm going to fill it with this 50% neutral gray. You're not going to see anything because with overlay, as I don't think I've mentioned this before, but overlay, basically 50% neutral gray does not affect the image. If you go darker or lighter, it's going to push the contrast essentially. So with this layer selected, we're going to go back to Filter, and you guessed it, Camera Raw. And if you go into the effects, there is grain, and I'm just going to bump this all the way up and hit OK. So now we're very chunky once again. I'm going to drop the opacity by hitting the Move tool, V, and just hitting the number 4 to see what that looks like. To set the opacity to 40, I'm actually going to drop it maybe to 30, maybe even 20. Drop it to 20. Let's see a before and after. Kind of helps us out a little bit. Did it affect our highlights at all? A little bit. I'm going to add a blending option on this, and it's called Blend If. And I'll show you what this does. Hopefully it, actually I'm going to cancel out and put this back to 100% so we can see what it's doing. So go into blending options, go to the underlying layer, and we're going to move the highlights in. So you can see what it's doing. It's going to basically say, hey, don't apply this layer to the highlights. And I'm gonna pull it over a little bit more. And if you hit Option, you can pull this out and separate these two carrots, or toolbars, I should say, and feather this effect. And I'm gonna feather it because we don't want it applied everywhere. I just kind of want to apply it to the darker areas. There we go, let's see that. So hit OK. I'm gonna set this back to, I think I had it at 20. And let's see what we got. Doesn't look like much, but trust me, if you're gonna print this out, it's gonna add a lot to your image. It just evens out kind of the muddy areas. And I'm gonna do one more thing. I'm gonna hit Command Option Shift E to merge a visible layer on top and go back to Camera Raw. And I'm going to just do some more effects. I'm gonna dehaze it a little bit to add some more contrast back in and add a slight vignette because everything looks better with a vignette, as we've addressed before. Hit OK. And look at this. In the matter of a few minutes, we've gone from this dark photo that you might not think could have been recovered to a lovely masterpiece such as this. That's all I've got for you today. I hope you've enjoyed it. If not, let me know in the comments below. Bleh. And if you did, let me also know in the comments below. If you have any ideas for future tutorials, let me know as well. And I will catch you guys next Tuesday. Peace out, guys.